Hello, everybody, and welcome to another discussion about Doctor Who Season 2. This week we are talking about Lucky Day, and it is just myself and Sean again this week. Sean, how are you?
I'm good. I'm a bit nervous. You had Mick killed during the week, so I'm trying to see how I get on.
This was, for me, a pleasantly surprising episode. Obviously, everyone will have seen my ups and downs. If you haven't, maybe go check those out before you watch this video because, as per usual, I'm not going to go as detailed into my views because there's a whole video on my views of this episode already. But Sean, what were your thoughts on Lucky Day?
Yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was really good. It was really timely. Um, what's been really interesting is I think some of the online feedback, some of it missed the point, which happens all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like we spoke previously about when we watched Dot and Bubble the first time around, like both of us kind of went, so we missed a big part of this episode. I remember talking about, oh, this is about how, echo chambers work on social media. And then I was like, oh, actually, duh on us, right? So watching this, and I thought, okay, there's a few people that have missed the point, specifically the ones going, oh, questioning authority is bad. I was like, okay, you completely missed the point of this episode. But no, hey, things happen. And then as the weekend went on, the more of those comments came out. I'm like, oh my God, you are proving the point of the episode because you are Conrad. This is a grift. And I thought, that's insane. Like I was texting the pair of ye as I was watching it. And, when the reveal comes, I was just like, oh God, I deal with those people every single day. Those bad faith, lying, just pathetic little dweebs that try and amplify their voice. And I was like, oh, sorry, I feel awful now because the actor's name has just gone right out of my head. Uh,
Jonah Hauer King.
Thank you so much. I was like, and blank. Sorry, Fiona nails that role
Hmm.
and he's so good because in the beginning I thought, oh, he's such a kind of a cute sort of, you could imagine him being the almost puppy dog, I guess, to Ruby, and I'm like, oh, and then when that turn happens, I have never hated a character so quick. Well, maybe Lindy Pepperbean, but like so much so quickly. He was
Hmm.
fabulous in the role for how much I hated him. Like, I mean, I was cheering on the Shriek, uh,
Yeah.
and it was really, really, really good. I thought it was handled really, really well. Um, I thought he did raise some interesting questions about, I've seen, it's been done here. I've seen it in other franchises as well of how far do you take the need for secrecy? Like, there's questions about how unit operates, which are interesting in how they're phrased. But the crucial thing of this episode is, I was going to say Jonah. No, Jonah is an actor. Conrad is a liar. That's the point that really comes across. So it's like, how do you take a valid question and ruin it in a heartbeat? Is you have it asked by a liar, and it's really, really clever how it was done. I really enjoyed this week's episode.
You just mentioned that twist there because something that I really enjoyed about this episode is I absolutely did not see that coming. Did you see that twist coming?
Um, no, I'll be honest, no, I didn't. I think because we got that context of him effectively growing up with the knowledge of the Doctor, you sort of think, a bit like I know look, the description's been made a lot online, so but the idea of Linda, in Love and Monsters
Hmm.
and Ethan Eldon, and Eldon growing up with this memory of the Doctor and how it can shape some people for the better,
Yeah.
and it didn't shape Conrad for the better. And what's really interesting as well is we don't know enough about Conrad. I mean, he's only a little boy, but before he meets the Doctor to sort of go, how did this impact him one way or the other? We get that kind of a glance where looks like he's not got a good relationship with his mum. Um, but you always hope in Doctor Who, don't you? You always hope, like, the meeting with the Doctor is going to be a positive thing. Then, of course, there's all the people who are horrifically traumatized by meeting the Doctor. So I guess that's a thing to bear in mind as well.
You know what? I think you've raised a good point there because there's a lot of kind of things that you notice in hindsight once you know with this character. So, for example, when he's a kid and when you first watch it, you're like, oh, he takes that 50p from the Doctor's hand and maybe he's scared or whatever. But then when you think about it, you're like, oh no, he just stole money from someone who was trying to be nice to him. Like he just snatched it from him and ran away. There was no thank you. There was no manners. So when you first watch it, you're kind of like, oh, bless him. He was, maybe a bit scared about the box that just appeared out of nowhere. But then when you watch it for a second time, knowing how he turns out to be, knowing how he was raised, you're kind of like, oh, actually, maybe you weren't being such a cute little boy there. Maybe you were just, you knew from a young age that the life you were going to have was one that was kind of immoral.
Hey, actually, funny, yeah, but the stealing the money. I mean, it's a life of grift. It's that the revelation. Obviously, we're kind of jumping to the end, but the revelation that he's funding he has money, like he's funding people's lifetimes. He's very much the. It's always funny on these kind of things. Do we name characters that they're based on, or do we face legal issues? Because well-known grifter podcasts who spout conspiracy theorists and lies and, disgusting made-up stories. There's an American one who, I don't know if I'm supposed to say a name because we could open ourselves up to a libel lawsuit, who, is now facing horrific amounts of lawsuits, and rightly so, for the lies they spread about, conspiracy theories and horrible atrocities. And I think this character of Conrad is very much based on that. It's like, how can I take the most horrific thing and make money off it?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
One thing I would say about this, because we have spoken before about, or I definitely have, about when the messaging of episodes is not so subtle. And obviously it's not very subtle in this episode, but what I kind of like about this one and where I kind of can let this one slide as opposed to other stories where I felt like it was too on the nose is that first of all, it wasn't the entirety of the episode. It wasn't from the first frame of this episode we had this character and instantly we knew what the story was going to be. We first kind of that bait and switch really helped because we didn't see it coming. And so then when it did come, it was really surprising. Then we kind of say to ourselves, why wasn't I expecting that? Why didn't I see that coming? I probably should have seen that coming and I didn't, which I think was good. But also what I think works really well, and in comparison to stories like Orphan 55, is even though you can clearly see what his intentions are, whether there's truth or lies and all of that, it's still ingrained within the fictional world of this Doctor Who universe. So it's not you destroyed the Earth, you humans bad, or like that. It's a case of we're going to criticize this fictional government agency and we're going to question their morals in terms of fictional alien life in the world. So I think it was one of those ones where it wasn't so on the nose in terms of we're not going to even try and ingrain this within a sci-fi scenario and we're just going to criticize the government for something that is real in the real world that has no subtle subtext at all. And yet it was really obvious, but it also was still ingrained within the sci-fi fictional world, which is what I think is what I've not really enjoyed in previous stories where they haven't even bothered to layer it into the subtext or layer it into the context of this is a sci-fi show, so we could at least frame it as it's an alien planet that's been destroyed. And the messaging is still there that if you do this, then your planet will be destroyed. But instead they went, no, this is planet Earth, and humans destroyed it.
I think as well, people have been talking about the, like Peter McTighe's other scripts. I think Kerblam being the one for the mixed messages, the kind of, because at the end of it, it's like, this is, kind of against Amazon, against the way they treat their workers, and oh no, actually it's automation. What? I'd like, and it's that kind of losing traction as it goes along, whereas he doesn't have that issue here. He really holds to it here, and I think, whether that's the case of, all right, what was it? Kerblam and Praxius had to stumble so that Lucky Day could run. which is, as writers, we all learn our craft as we go. You know what I mean? Because I think he nails it. I think this is an excellent script. I think it's an excellent story. I think it's acted well, um, and and it sort of lives and dies. I mean, obviously we're talk about Ruby as well because I thought Millie was brilliant in this episode. Kate's brilliant in this episode. Like also big up Shirley coming back. As you know, I've been lamenting the lack of Shirley. Um, but this lives and dies on Conrad.
Hmm.
Like if Jonah didn't nail this, I think this would be just another annoying character being annoying.
Yeah.
Um, and I think he absolutely nailed it. He's so hateable. And it's not just the things he says. Like we were messaging and I was just like, "Oh, he just slagged off the brigadier. He's a dead man." It's not just the things he says. It's how he plays it as well. There's one line, actually funny enough, the one line that really got under my skin was when he shouted at Ruby, "The grown-ups are talking now."
Yeah.
And
Patronizing.
just that, you scumbag. Because it's hard to tell what he actually believes because he doesn't really believe anything. He believes in money. He believes in grifting and getting one over on other people. But what I think that show that he did believe is that he is above everybody else.
Mm.
He's kind of seen how things work.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you brought that up because the one criticism I did have of this episode comes back to the same thing we've been saying for all the episodes is the pacing. And the one thing that I did find a little bit confusing was understanding when this change in attitude towards the Doctor and unit occurred in Conrad. Obviously, we did know that he'd had an interview to work for unit, but I almost feel like it would have been beneficial for us to have seen some of that interview, not just the soundless clip that we saw in the background on an iPad, but actually have maybe a flashback or something that could give us a little bit more of an understanding of what triggered this change in Conrad to make him become the person he is. Because when we see him see Ruby and the Doctor the year prior, he's not. I mean, he's seeing it. So that, I mean, obviously he knows it's real. It isn't a lie. He's seen it with his own eyes, and he's met the Doctor before. And when he first sees them, it's not a case of him trying to expose them as such. So I want to know what happened to trigger that. And if it was in that interview, I kind of think it would have been beneficial to see a bit of that so that we understood a bit more what they said to him to make him suddenly have this complete change and want to just expose them as whatever he thinks they are.
That's it. That's really interesting. No, I read it that he was himself walking into that interview. Like it wasn't the interview that did anything. It wasn't that kind of set him off on this path. I think he was on that path already. That
In
came,
which case, why?
I mean, yeah, fair. Is it the fact that it's obviously we get the briefest of glances at it is the fact that he seems to have a bad home life. Um, because I think characters who are just bad are dull. They can do interesting things, but if there's no exploration as to why they are the way they are, that's dull. I thought personally, actually, obviously this week I thought it was paced quite well. I think if we get more Conrad, which it looks like we probably will, I would like a little bit of an expect. Not, I don't want an excuse for the way he is the way that he is, but I wouldn't mind seeing a development of, because you're right, we don't get much of a development of Conrad.
Yeah, I just was a bit confused as to obviously the whole point is that he is spreading misinformation. He knows that what he's saying is not true
That's
because
crucial.
he's
He
seen it
knows.
with his own eyes.
Yeah.
But what I kind of want to understand is at what point did he go from seeing this as a child to developing this entire mindset that he's going to spread lies about it despite the fact that he knows it's true? And maybe that's a wider question for all the people that do that in the real world. What is your motivation? Why are you doing it? But I just think in terms of Conrad, I was confused as to what happened. Why are you like this? What has happened? You've seen it with your own eyes. So why have you now got this mindset? What's triggered this in you?
Yeah, I definitely want a character that has depth, but I don't. know if I'm interested in a redemption either. Ooh, possibly a controversial opinion here. Like, say we get an episode later on, which again I presume we will. Like, oh, Conrad turned out to be good in the end. No, the really annoying thing that I think they nailed in this episode is some people honestly get to a stage where they're scumbags. Conrad's a
Yeah, no, I don't want a redemption.
I think let's someone was it might have been Danny, but someone shared like kind of where like oh, we're gonna put Conrad on the shelf with these other people. Was it Lance? Was one of the ones he put beside. It's like the one who was like marrying Donna, but actually not like yeah they were just not interested in a redemption of those characters
Mm.
the way they're written.
I mean, the thing is, he kind of had that opportunity in this episode. He had the opportunity, I mean, albeit because the Shriek was going to eat him, but to admit that he was wrong. And he did do that. And you thought, okay, finally, you've come to your senses. But as soon as the danger was removed, he went straight back to that same dickish attitude. So there is just no saving him. He's not going to change his mind. He's going to stick to those lies. Because as soon as the Ruby tasered the Shriek, he was like, "I'll see your special effects," and he went back to being sarcastic and snarky and a dick.
Yeah, I'm glad the Shriek ate his arm.
Mhm.
But there was so there's one thing though that does so in the village, so before the reveal, he
Mhm.
says to Ruby, I didn't take the antidote, right?
Yeah.
Um and now it's going on. So he knows they're not shrieks outside. Like he knows that they're people in rubber costumes. So on the one hand, I get so I'm gonna say a sentence. So sorry, as I gotta try and feel this out. So on the one hand, I'm like, why did he say it to Ruby? There was no need to say that to her because he knew that there was no danger. So that aside, when we get the reveal that he is a grifter, he's a liar, he doesn't believe what he's saying, and to your point that he knows the Doctor is real, he knows the TARDIS is real, I think he absolutely would have taken that antidote because I mean you're quite right when you say this episode is not subtle. It obviously wasn't meant to be subtle, but this is at least that aspect of it is about the sorry Danny bollocks of anti-vaxxers who will scream at you that you're injecting poison as they get vaccinated. And that's
Right.
what Conrad is in that scene. So the thing that I think maybe I'm reading it wrong. I think he would have taken the antidote because at the
Mm.
end of the day, he wants to save his own arse. He doesn't care about anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, he could have just said he didn't take it because, like you say, he knows they're not real, but she doesn't. So just say you didn't take it. But yeah, I feel like you probably would have taken it. And if you had, you'd have saved yourself a whole lot of pain in your arm.
Yeah, 100.
But then we wouldn't have had a good story for the rest of the
Oh, I
episode.
completely
So,
like 100%. No, no, no. I mean, like, yes. I'm Team Shriek, but yeah, it's like that was I think maybe one where either he did take it and it was a little bit unclear and it was just the fact that the Shriek was in the room with him, it didn't need the pheromones or not at that point, maybe, but it just seemed like because everything else was I feel everything else was pretty damn clear. That was a little bit unclear to me.
mm, mm. It is interesting. Obviously, we did touch on Pete McTighe being the writer of this episode. And you did mention his other two episodes there as well, Kablam and Praxius, which weren't necessarily the strongest of episodes. I don't think they're at the top of anyone's lists of Doctor Who episodes. But there has been a kind of suggestion floating around that Pete McTighe could be the heir to the showrunner mantle of Doctor Who. Obviously, he has written some episodes before. He has co-written the spin-off, The War Between the Land and the Sea, and he's been involved in other elements of the show as well. So he's definitely ingrained within the show in terms of his involvement. And this was a good episode, but it's interesting that people after this one good episode would think that he has has what it takes to be the showrunner when you look at his previous stories. So
That's it. Like, I'm with you on that one because I don't want this to come across like, oh, Jesus, he couldn't. That's not what I'm saying. I'm thinking this was a fabulous script, and I think it was brilliant, and he deserves all of the praise. And I would love to see more like this. So that's
Mhm.
where I'm at when it comes to potential next showrunner things like that. Maybe, you know, I would think, yeah, Kerblam and Praxius unfortunately wouldn't fill me with like, oh, he's the guy. Whereas this is like, ooh, oh no, this is good. And obviously, we have yet to see a reel from War Between the Land and the Sea.
Yeah,
Um,
I will say that having seen this episode now, seeing those unit characters who we know are going to be in the War Between the Land and the Sea, knowing that it's from the same writer, I will say I am more intrigued as to what we're going to see in the War Between the Land and the Sea now. Because for a while I did think to myself, why is this the route they've gone down? And I think probably because the focus has been so much on the fact that it's going to be the Sea Devils that I've forgotten the fact that it's also going to be a unit focused
mm,
story. And I think this episode really, really worked as a kind of backdoor pilot for this spin-off we're going to get. We had some nuggets in there. I mean, I feel like the mention of Mel going to Sydney Harbour because something strange is happening, to me suggests either they're setting up the War Between the Land and the Sea, or they're setting up something that's going to happen in the finale, the season finale for this show. Because I don't think Mel is in the War Between the Land and the Sea that we know of.
yeah, I don't think that we know of. It's like because then I was trying to remember, like, do we know? I'm assuming she'll be in this season, but I actually don't. Now that I think about it,
She is in the trailer, so we know
cool.
she is in this season, I assume in the final episodes.
Gotcha.
But I kind of feel like that line is either setting up, I mean, the Sydney Opera House is, you know, a global landmark. So whether it's something to do with the kind of Earth being destroyed and the landmarks that we're seeing floating in space later on, whether it's connected to that or whether it's connected to the spin-off. My first thought was the spin-off. When they said that line, I did think to myself, oh, that was a nice little setup there for what's to come.
That was my first, yeah, 'cause harbor. You know, it's like
Hmm.
right, war between the land and the sea. They tend to meet on the shore or often at a harbor. Uh, so, but either way, like I really enjoyed the unit characters in this story.
Hmm.
We have spoken about this before. I have a somewhat less adulation based love for Kate. And I know I'm in the minority on that one, and that is absolutely fine. And some she's their favorite character. She was brilliant this week, absolutely brilliant.
She was so good. I mean, I do love Kate. Um, I think it's interesting as well that we've seen this side of Kate that is kind of pushing those boundaries. And I think Pete McTighe has suggested that there will be consequences to this, that there's going to be more to this. I mean, Colonel Sexy did tell her that she went too far and she kind of brushed it off, but I think she knows that she went too far as well.
I think
And it seems that this is not
definite,
going to be the
mm,
end of it.
there was a definite decision was made on Kate's part at one
Hmm.
point, which again could be as simple as you just don't trash talk the Brigadier. You just don't do it.
Hmm.
Like Conrad, babes, what are you doing? Like, if Kate doesn't get you, someone else will at this point. Um, and also loved the shout out to, you know, the Colonel's original appearance in the Web of Fear. You know, Yetis in the Underground. You know, Conrad, for all of, you know, being a crap artist that he is, did his homework.
Yeah, he's done his research.
Which is it was great, good for him. I bet he probably has some of the missing episodes of that serial as well. Probably him, you know. And yeah.
I
What?
will say, something that has been playing on my mind. Obviously, in these latest seasons since the 60th, Unit has become this very big public institution. They've got this huge tower in the middle of London.
Hmm.
And I don't know how I feel about Unit suddenly being such a public thing. Because Unit in the past has always been this kind of secret organization that's quietly protecting the Earth from the alien threats. And even if you go back to episodes like when we first met Kate, when you've got a power of three, and you know they're in a little cellar in the Tower of London, like they're kind of hidden away from the public eye. And I do think maybe there is a question for if Unit hadn't made themselves so public, would someone like Conrad have come up with all of this stuff to try and bring them down? I'm wondering if, obviously, in terms of story, it's they need something to kind of make it keep happening. But in my mind, I think Unit works better when it's trying to keep quiet. and trying to be secret and trying not to draw attention to itself. And I do wonder if they maybe shot themselves in the foot a little bit there by making themselves so public. They've opened themselves up for this sort of attack.
For me, I think that was the point. That unit being as public facing as it now is, that something like this was inevitable. So you're saying you prefer more of a Torchwood?
I think I do. I think the whole element of what Doctor Who is to me, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, all of these people, is that they never ask to be thanked for the help that they give. And I'm not saying that that unit is asking for thanks, but by highlighting their big organization in big tower in the middle of the city, it is drawing attention to that organization. And I think it works better when they just quietly help people without expecting anything in return. I guess. I mean, also, did you notice there was a school trip, a tour of children in the unit towers? I just think this is not what unit is.
I did, and I wonder, like, how much of it is a concerted PR image. It's like, oh, look, look at what we do, because, you see that with, like, I'm sure there's this school trip. Okay, I don't know if there's school trips to Scotland Yard, maybe outside of it, but things like that. It was like, yeah, look at these people, they're protecting us, they're looking after and everything, which of course opens the door to, no, they're not. Yeah.
Have you seen the memes of it's like, it's not a school trip, it's a group of, it's recruitment. It's recruiting some more employees.
Actually, that was, and on that, someone said as well, I was like, kind of, Conrad had a lot to say about everything. Never said a word about the child workers, though. Oh, well, he agrees with them on at least one thing.
Actually, that's another thing. I'm not against there being, lots of different, different staff members for unit. Obviously, we do have Morris. We do have Mel, who wasn't there. You've seen Rose turn up as well. But I kind of feel like it worked better in this episode that we had a few less people in unit. I think when there's so many characters flying around, it's really difficult to give everyone enough time to do it. It's a criticism they had of the whole fam situation with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. There's so many companions and trying to give them all enough to do. I think this worked well because we didn't have quite so many unit characters. And again, why it served well as a setup for the War Between the Land and the Sea, because it's the three that are going to be in that spin-off.
Yeah, no, I agree. Less viewpoint characters means less, sorry, rubbing my eye for everyone there. Less distraction for ourselves trying to tell the story at the end of the day. Like, and we kind of, not that we know everything about Shirley, but we know her well enough, in this scene that if you threaten Shirley, or if you're rude about Shirley, this bugs me. We know enough about Colonel Sexy, who I love that we're just not saying his name, but like we know enough about him that if you threaten him, this bugs me. And then of course Kate and Ruby as well. But yeah, whereas when you fill a room full of people, what you get is red shirts, which is what happened with Joy.
Yeah. I will say I'm still enjoying that they're continuing this whatever is going on with Kate and Colonel Sexy.
Didn't Joe Redgrave come out and say that, oh, no, they're just friends?
Yeah, right. But this clip was from the premiere before this episode was released. So I think she was well and truly telling big fat lies.
He knew what she was doing.
I love it. I ship it so hard. But you know what I love about it? This is the thing, right? I've realized something, because I love Kate. I love the dynamic she has with Colonel Sexy, and it's a very similar thing to another massive ship that I have in a different franchise that you are very well aware of. And it's the same dynamic. It's the same dynamic. It's the female commander, the leader, right? And there's no question that she's in charge. And yet there's this man that's kind of her subordinate. It's like her number one, literally her number one, always at her side, never oversteps and challenges her authority, but always has one eye on her to make sure that she's always safe, which is exactly what he was doing. He always had an eye on her. He was ready to stand in front of her, but she was well and truly prepared to protect herself. But there's always this eye on her. And I like, there have been some people criticizing my shipping of this, that it shouldn't be okay because he is her subordinate. And I do see that. I do understand that. But I think part of what I like about it is that she he doesn't question her authority, but he always has her safety in mind. And I like that. Maybe that says more about me and my tastes.
That's one thing. Actually, warning to those writing The War Between the Land and the Sea. If he at any point turns out to be a traitor, you will have to deal with Ellie.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I like him. I like to look at him.
There was I saw an interesting point raised over the weekend that in almost all of Shirley's appearances, someone, to show that they're a bad person, someone makes, a derogatory comment about the fact that she's in a wheelchair or the fact that she is disabled. And as Conrad does as well, he turns the camera on her and said, "Oh, look, she's there stealing our benefits," because obviously she's working for a unit. Um, I thought in the context of this episode, it just helps to highlight what a scumbag Conrad is. Um, it's an interesting point. Should a character be, have this aspect of themselves brought up in every single appearance?
Mm.
Um, and I think it's interesting because I think the comment worked really well in this episode. But yeah, it does bear thinking about.
It's the same situation with the crying. It's the same thing. If you do it in few instances where it really aids the story, then it works. But if you just keep doing it, then you see through it. So I
No,
think
you
it's the
dilute your
same.
own point. Yeah, you dilute your own point.
Hmm.
Also, no tears this week.
I know that got an up. I promised I'd up it. Is it a cheat because he was in three scenes? Three scenes. I said two in the ups and downs. I completely forgot about an entire scene. But
Flips table, storms out.
when he's only in three scenes in the entire episode, is it maybe a little bit of a cheat? Maybe, but I was really, really glad to see this different side to his Doctor. This is what I've been waiting for us to see the layers of this version of the Doctor. I just feel like it's taken this. Why has it taken this long for us to see something new from him?
I agree. We were texting during it, and because I think didn't we text and go like, have we got our Doctor speech? I'm not sure if we have, but it's a good one. It's a very good. I love Shooty in this scene with Conrad. Actually, again, clever, directions and staging and everything. Someone highlighted um, the fact that the TARDIS materializes around Conrad, robbing him of the walking in and doing its bigger on the inside.
Mm, yeah.
That was really clever, and again, I didn't pick up on that watching the episode. People think I'm smarter than I am. I'm not that smart. But yeah, it was really good because then, kind of, oh, here's the Doctor. Hi, welcome to the TARDIS. Yeah. I'm gonna ruin your entire life. Nah, it was really, really good. I really enjoyed this scene, and I want more of not necessarily the Doctor being dark, but I do want more range.
Yeah. This is what I just feel like Shooty is a great actor, but I feel like his forte, his go-to is this same response because at the moment I feel like his Doctor is basically Eric from Sex Education. There's the flamboyance and there's the kind of moments that are very emotional. But I want to see the elements of the Doctor that we haven't really seen from him yet. The kind of the Time Lord victorious element that we kind of started to see come through in this episode. And we can clearly see that he can give it. So I'm just really
Oh yeah.
hoping that his acting choices in the next few episodes start to kind of evolve into a few more of those kind of unexpected tones. Because I think that's the thing, it's just become predictable, and that's what I don't want. I want to be surprised. This episode surprised me because I didn't expect to enjoy it as much. I think because I knew it was Ruby centric, and I've spoken about how I wasn't as big of a fan of Ruby as a companion. So I kind of, after how much I enjoyed last week, I kind of went into this one thinking, okay, well, you can't win them all. This one's probably not going to be your cup of tea. And I was really, really surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I think it's my favorite Ruby episode ever.
Yeah, to be honest, yes, I think I'm right there with you on that one. Um, it's very to me because obviously, like we're half an hour talking about this, and we haven't mentioned really Ruby yet. For me, it's very evocative of Martha Jones. Because when Martha came back in the fourth season in The Poison Sky, The Sontaran Stratagem, and The Doctor's Daughter, which is so funny that it's just like, oh yeah, that
I
was
love that
a
episode.
really good episode. Don't get me wrong. I liked Martha more when she wasn't with the Doctor.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that, and I think that's kind of the same with Ruby. Although everyone loves 73 yards, a lot of people love 73 yards. I wasn't as impressed by that one as I thought I was going to be.
I thought it was very good. I did. I think maybe there's a fantastic episode in there. Maybe just juggle a few things around.
Yeah.
For
But this
example,
one,
I think we disagree. I think I thought the tavern scene the joke went on way too long in 73 yards, where they were kind of playing on her that there was, demon outside or whatever. Whereas, okay, obviously that's not this episode, but like, I think here, the joke, mean-spirited joke being that he's playing her for half the episode, it needed to be as long as it was.
yeah,
And I think it
definitely.
really works.
Yeah. I also think it was really interesting for us to explore this side of a companion who is left behind and what that means for them, how they adjust. Because I mentioned this in the ups and downs. More often than not, if a companion stays behind, it's because the actor is leaving the show. So you don't really have the opportunity to see what their life is like once the Doctor has left them, because the show continues following the Doctor and you don't really see that companion again. And then when we do see the companions again, in those rare instances, often it's them embodying the Doctor on Earth. You have Sarah Jane becoming kind of like this monster catching freelance journalist, or you have Martha who becomes part of UNIT and becomes this very strong UNIT employee, or so I thought it was very interesting to explore a character who kind of just tries to adjust back into normal life. I think because Ruby's so young as well, it really worked, because she's still trying to process everything and she's trying to have a normal 20-year-old's life, but can't help but see danger everywhere she goes. So I think that was really interesting to explore. But then when a situation does arise, she kind of has that experience to take control, but also is scared. She's taking control of a situation because she knows that's what the Doctor would do and that's what she has the experience in, but she doesn't pretend that she's not terrified at the same time.
Because didn't we explore that a little bit with Clara? When Clara tried to be the Doctor, it didn't go well.
No.
And,
You don't need to get into Clara.
the Clara hate. Yeah, and I really like that. Again, it's been commented on, but one of the strengths of the episode is that the Doctor doesn't gut her story by turning up to save her.
Yeah. Which is why I think this works so well as a kind of backdoor pilot for a spin-off. Because I like to see those situations where the Doctor isn't there to help.
Yeah,
and
like,
how
this is our
that
Doctor
makes the
like
situation
that.
differ. Yeah. Whereas 73 yards, I feel like I noticed that the Doctor was missing from the episode, which you don't want in a Doctor Light story. Blink, as a perfect example, you don't really notice that the Doctor's not there because you're so engrossed in the story. And similarly with this episode, I didn't really notice the absence of the Doctor. So I think that was handled much better. And then the scenes that he was in were relevant and important. They didn't just feel like, oh, we do need at least one scene with the Doctor in it. The scenes that we did have were relevant either to the story arc of the entire season with regards to the first scene with Belinda. Then you've obviously got to have a little bit of backstory for Conrad in terms of seeing Ruby and the Doctor and the whole Shriek situation, which I liked that they included that line about them seeing the Beatles. So we got an idea of where this fits in their timeline. And then obviously we have the closing scene. And what I think worked really well in the closing scene, because I was confused at first as to how the Doctor had suddenly come to Earth, because the whole point is that he can't get there. The one line where Conrad says, "Have you met Belinda yet?" answers the question of who told the Doctor Belinda's name, but also gives us as the audience an understanding of where in the timeline this episode takes place. Because without that line, I would have been really confused as to how the Doctor could be there and where this fits in the timeline of events.
I know I said this last week, but I'm feeling it again. Okay, Mrs. Flood. Yeah. What I'm worried. Obviously, we'll see when we get to the next episode. So this worry might age like milk. But what I'm worried is that they're saving the big reveal for the last episode, because I'm over these teases. I hate to say it, but we're 4 episodes in. I'm over it.
Yeah, I said the same thing last week. Oh, maybe next week we'll get some more information. We're now at the halfway mark, and it's just the same tiny little scenes I think even the fact that they're always at the end of the episode doesn't help because we're just waiting for them at this point. At least if you put them somewhere random in the episode,
Yeah.
you catch us by surprise.
See,
Whereas again, the
Robot
same.
Revolution was at the beginning, I know, but like just as you say, just drop it in somewhere because
Yeah,
now I'm not. I don't want this to sound cruel, but up until this episode, you were waiting for the Doctor to cry as like almost like a check.
yeah.
And now I'm waiting for Mrs. Flood like a check.
Yeah, and like last week we got to a point where I was like, well, she hasn't appeared in this episode yet, so she must be who they're talking to at the end of this episode. And similarly, we got to the end of this episode, someone's walking down the corridor, and I'm like, well, it must be Mrs. Flood because we haven't seen her yet, and we know she's in every episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like they're becoming a little bit predictable, and we're not really getting much from her. Now, obviously, she did reveal herself to be the governor in this episode, and I have seen some people speculating that is this some sort of like Time Lord title, like the Master, like the Doctor, like the Rani. Quite honestly, I don't know that it is because you do have police.
Corsair, because we always forget about the Corsair because they always
yes.
have the same tattoo on every arm. Sorry, I like the Corsair. I do the Corsair.
But we have governors in the police system, in the prison system. So I kind of, while it could be, my gut says she just was the governor of.
She was playing this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are you? Oh, I'm just the governor. Like that's just who she is pretending to be. I guess the big thing is that she did release Conrad.
Yeah.
Which does then suggest that we may be seeing Conrad again. I also feel like Jonah Hauer-King is quite a big actor. I mean, he played Prince Eric in the Little Mermaid film, so I feel like it would be wasted if he wasn't in more episodes. So because of the popularity of the actor, I feel like that's not the last we've seen of him either.
Yeah, I reckon so. Yeah. Which is, I mean, I hate him, so he's a good foil. Do you know what I mean? Like,
this is the thing as well. I think as much as I always talk about, the monsters should be good, like they should be practical effects and things, I sometimes think the best Doctor Who monsters aren't the people in suits. The best monsters, the best villains are the humanoid villains, the ones who can vocalize the menacing plans or can be spiteful and cruel, which, the Shriek can roar and chase you, and it is, a stereotypical monster. But Conrad's the real villain here because he uses his words. His words are his weapon. And I think they're the best villains. That's why I'd love to play a villain, because you can just be so mean and cruel. And I think, obviously, we haven't really mentioned much about the Shriek, because I just think the Shriek isn't intended to be the villain we discuss after this episode. Shall we move into our ranking for season 2?
I think so.
So where does Lucky Day fit in your ranking, Sean?
I don't want to get boring by doing this. I think it's my number one. I think it's the best written. I think it is the best written episode of the season by far. And it's definitely the one I've thought about the most after the credits rolled. Basically 4, 3, 2, 1.
Interesting. I found this one really difficult, I'm not gonna lie, trying to order these ones, because they're all pretty good. I mean, I still stand by the Robot Revolution being at the bottom so far. It wasn't an awful episode, but it was the worst of the 4 that we've seen so far. I really do struggle with this one. I think I'm going to keep The Well at number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I did really enjoy The Well. And then I think Lucky Day, then Lux, then the Robot Revolution.
It's funny because I remember we were talking about this, like watching Lux. We're like, there you go, it's an amazing episode. It's brilliant, it's brilliant, brilliant. And it is. And we've been surprised by 2 blinders of episodes afterwards.
This is the thing. I've been surprised by how good these episodes have been.
Yeah.
Which is good, I suppose. I'd rather come out of them being surprised at how good they were than coming out disappointed that they weren't as good as I hoped they would be.
Absolutely.
And then obviously next week we have the story in the engine, which I'm intrigued by.
Yes, I too am intrigued by Anansi, who is an Akan folktale character associated with stories, wisdom, knowledge, and trickery.
I just want to know how there's a barbershop on the back of a spider's back. That's what I want to know.
Listen, where else are you supposed to have a barbershop?
That's what this is the one that I'm curious about, where the story is going to go and how it all fits together with this one. That's my biggest intrigue for next week's episode.
Yep. No, 100%. I'm looking forward, because I know Russell T Davies spoke before. I think it was in the writing of The Well that he was trying to work with Shooty to, do something with stories originating in Nigeria, stories originating from Africa. And at that point, in working out the script of The Well, they couldn't make it work together. And the trailer opens with "We're on Lagos, Nigeria." I'm really looking forward to seeing what they've managed to put together for this one.
Yeah, it's exciting. Let's hope we continue on this upward climb of really impressive episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued. Make sure that you go and check out the ups and downs for this episode. And of course, we have the main 3 videos for every episode that's been out. So you can go back and check out the Robot Revolution coverage and Lux and The Well as well. And we will have the Easter eggs coming very soon too. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well. But thank you very much for joining us. Have a wonderful week. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.